Hi everybody, FPL Witty here, back with another of my regular weekly FPL videos. We're out here in the autumnal Yorkshire countryside to have a chat about everything FPL. Recording this on the back of game week 14, recording this on Monday morning. So we'll have a look back at the last game week, have a look forward, have a chat about some of the key talking points, have a look at my game week as well. So I hope you had a good game week yourself. So we'll try and cram this into about 15 minutes, so that's the plan. So yeah, it was quite a dramatic game week, I thought, in the end. Plenty going on. Probably the biggest talking point going into the game week, of course, was Mr. Haaland, wasn't it? And will he play? Will he not play? Will he be on the bench? We're all scrambling around for late team leaks, which a few people got right in the last 10 minutes or so. But in the end, of course, he didn't make the squad. So we've had quite a lot of vice-captain points, bench points, auto subs, all coming into play this week. I was on Salah after I got sort of unofficial but fairly reliable news near the deadline that Haaland wasn't in the squad. It wouldn't have mattered, of course, because I got Salah as vice-captain. So yeah, quite a lot going on. We had two keepers injured, taken off, so bad luck if you were on Martinez of Villa and Kepa, who I think will be quite popular due to his price and his recent form. We had Newcastle made 6 substitutions, and none of them were concussion substitutes, so that was an interesting one for the record books. There is a reason, of course. Villa had a concussion substitute of their own, so they had to give Newcastle an extra one. So yeah, plenty of drama. And the headline, of course, is that Arsenal are marching on, aren't they? They cut the Forest down 5-0. So for somebody like me who only had Martinelli in that game, it was a bit of a nervous watch, or rather a nervous I won't watch. I was out for 93 minutes, deliberately not watching that one. So 5-0, not exactly the score I wanted, but Martinelli did get me a goal. But all the popular Arsenal assets returned, didn't they? We had Martinelli, Saka and Jesus all amongst the points, and the Arsenal defence as well. But in terms of Arsenal themselves, 5-0, very comfortable, very slick, helped by the early goal. So they're certainly in the groove, aren't they, Arsenal, at the moment? So much for Forest being a tough nut to crack now, eh? So well done, Arsenal. And of course City, Manchester City, hot on their heels, fully expecting them to win at Leicester. They did so without Haaland, and a bit of a surprise to see Phil Foden benched again after we'd all brought him in a couple of weeks ago. We'd all made that switch from Kevin De Bruyne, I think a lot of us did over the last few weeks. And of course it was De Bruyne who got the goal. Just typical FPL, isn't it, really? Just when we thought Danny Ward was going to keep a clean sheet against City, the way he was performing. Bit of a transformed keeper, isn't he? But City found a winner, and one goal was enough, so City going well. Bit of a dilemma, of course, now what to do with Haaland, but we'll just have to keep an eye on the team news, won't we, really, over the coming few days. He's certainly a dangerous player to start selling. I think a few sold him to Kane, which of course backfired this week anyway. So Spurs, they kept the pressure up as well, didn't they? They won 3-2 at Bournemouth. 2 goals for ex-Barnsley lad Kiefer Moore. Well done, Kiefer. And Spurs, they came from 2 down to win 3-2. So certainly a bit of fighting spirit. A last gasp winner from Spurs. But of course Harry Kane only got 1 point, didn't he? Which probably a bit extra significant this week with all of permanent captains taken away from Haaland. It was a bit of a Salah v Kane captain standoff for a lot of people, wasn't it? And it was, of course, Salah won that one, so Tough one for Harry Kane owners. Liverpool, of course, that was a big surprise, wasn't it, again? Perhaps we shouldn't be saying surprise anymore, but they've just lost now back-to-back to Forest and Leeds. Bit of a concern there. Good news for Mo Salah, captains, of course. But I didn't think he looked great, but he found one goal, didn't he? So we'll take that, I suppose. But yeah, Liverpool, what's going on there, eh? Full credit to Leeds, they stuck at it, they had a go. It was a bit like the Leeds of old, really, wasn't it? On the Bielsa murder ball type football, but Leeds manager was under a bit of pressure. They came out and attacked, and full credit, so well done Leeds. Breathe a bit of life into their season. But yeah, a bit of a crisis at Liverpool for sure. Plenty on the Liverpool triple ups. I thought Darwin could have had a few goals. We keep saying that every week, don't we? Firmino, he could have had a few, so a bit unlucky if you're on that Liverpool triple up, and the clean sheet gone as well, of course, including Trent. So not a good day for Liverpool or the FPL assets either. The new manager bounce at Villa, that lasted 1 week, didn't it? After their 4-0 win last week, they got beat 4-0 this week. So a bit of a disaster for Villa. But taken apart by Newcastle. And of course Newcastle really on a roll now, aren't they? Top 4, I think they're looking slick, aren't they? So I was on the double Newcastle clean sheet. Trippier managed a double figure haul again. We had Almiron and Callum Wilson in amongst the points. Callum Wilson 2 goals and 2 assists, so I think he'll be a popular transfer in this week for sure. So yeah, I think Newcastle have got the top FPL point scoring goalkeeper, and they've also got the top point scoring defender as well with Trippier. I think Almiron's right up there virtually as amongst the top midfielders as well, so certainly a Newcastle triple up is looking the way to go at the moment, isn't it? So certainly steaming away. So elsewhere we had Mr. Potter going back to his old club with Chelsea, and Brighton did a complete job on him, really, didn't they? 4-1 thrashing. Well done Brighton, assisted by 2 own goals, but of course they fully deserve their win. Well done to Brighton. Just a bad day at the office really for Chelsea, of course. But Trossard, or Trollard as we call him, how many of us sold Trossard to get Phil Foden in? So what a disaster all round that's proving to be, isn't it? So outside of that we had Rashford. Well done if you picked him up. Rashford was the match winner for United against West Ham. 1-0 also for Palace. I was on Zaha, who blanked again, so I think I've had Zaha now for 6 weeks, and I've had 1 goal and 1 assist from him in these so-called dream fixtures. So I think we can all agree that Zaha is one of the trolls of FPL, so he's living up to his name for sure. Elsewhere, 1 apiece between Brentford and Wolves. We had Costa sent off. Don't think many will be on him. And significant one really was Tony getting his 5th yellow, wasn't it? So I'm a Tony owner. So the frustrating thing for that, of course, is that he's now suspended. And of course he misses his plum fixture against Forest next week. So shades of Maddison from the other week, that, isn't it? So that's certainly a frustrating one. So we had a goalless draw between Fulham and Everton. Just when we were all piled in on Mitrovic and Andreas, and I think we all needed Andreas this week after he's scored a few off the bench for us. But they drew a blank. Mitrovic had 10 shots actually in that game, but it wasn't meant to be. And a bit of a bizarre one this, because both goalkeepers scored double figures in this game. So Leno and Pickford both racking up the points in FPL, so I hope you're on one of them. So yeah, plenty going on. In terms of my game week, Bit of a strange one really, because I had 6 returning players and a goal from captain Salah. So I think normally when you get 6 returning players you can expect a decent chance of a green arrow. I had 4 clean sheets from Pope, Trippier, Cancelo, Gahey of Palace, that was nice. And I had goals from Martinelli and Salah. So normally expect a fairly decent week with that, but no, I took a red arrow this week again, 2 in a row now after that fantastic start. So I think my lack of a second Arsenal attacker, or in fact lack of 2 or 3 Arsenal players, cost me this week. I said at the start of the week that whatever Zaha, Tony and Mitrovic did would define my game week this week, and of course they all blanked and they all got a yellow card and Tony got suspended. So add that into the Phil Foden being on the naughty step, and it was a bit of a rough ride for me this week with a few players like Almiron and De Bruyne scoring against me. So I ended up on a red arrow this week, down from 57k to 95k. So all was rosy in the garden a couple of weeks ago in the top 20k, but I've had a couple of red arrows and slipped back a bit. So it's a bit frustrating, but just got to get on with it, haven't you? So I must have had probably the best 11 fixtures I could have had on paper, but that counts for nothing if they don't get the points, doesn't it? So there we are. So yeah, quickly on to game week 14. So I think the first thing, 15 rather, only 2 weeks to go. So a couple of things. We've got some European games midweek, so do nothing until they're out the way, unless you're absolutely going to be priced out of a player that you must have. Wait for those European games. And we've only got 2 games now till we get unlimited transfers at the World Cup. So of course every transfer now needs to be focused on the next 2 game weeks. So just be conscious of that. And of course watch out for injury news on particularly players like Haaland and Saka. Saka went off injured, of course, which I didn't mention in that Arsenal game. So that's a bit of a problem now for a few. And a few's got the Tony suspension to deal with. So yeah, tough week ahead. Certainly give it plenty of thought. I've got Tony to deal with, so I think I'll be moving him on to either Callum Wilson potentially, or might even move him on to Jesus. It'd be one or the other. I think Jesus seems to have been knocking on the door of a monster haul over the last couple of weeks, but just not quite managing it. So it'll be one of those 2 for sure. So yeah, we've got some tasty fixtures. We've got a couple of big ones in London. We've got Tottenham against Liverpool, and we've got Chelsea against Arsenal. I think the game to be on in terms of points is probably Man City against Fulham, but of course who's going to play? So that's a big head scratcher at the moment, isn't it? All eyes on Haaland, Foden and De Bruyne, trying to work out who's going to start. I think if you can nail one of those 3 starting, they're the obvious captain this week, but the fun and games will start, of course, if we find out that Haaland's out a bit longer. So that will be interesting. So yeah, plenty to think about. Keep the faith in your team if you've had a bad week. I've had a couple of knocks this last couple of weeks after being in such a good position, but it never plays to get complacent, does it, in this game? You just never know. So yeah, hope you have a good game week 15 when it arrives on Saturday. 2 more game weeks to go now. Hope we can nail a good finish before we put our feet up for the World Cup. So yeah, hope you have a good week. Enjoy the midweek European football. We're just inside the 15 minutes, so I'll be back next week to talk about my week. You can follow me on Twitter at FPL Witty. I write website articles for Fantasy Football Geek, so be sure to like and subscribe. I'll be back next week. So as they say in Barnsley, I'll see thee.